All right, let's pull back the curtain on the Gardner City Council. We're going to walk through their big February update, and believe me, there are some surprising financial twists, some key leadership changes, and a story about a city government really trying to get its house in order. So let's just dive right in. So where are we getting all this from? Well, it's the real deal. Everything we're talking about comes straight from a report by City Council President George Tyros himself. This is our inside look, the council's official take on what was a very, very busy month.
Here's the game plan for today. We'll start with the view from the top. Then we're going to follow the money, and that's where things get interesting. From there, we'll get into an unexpected new employee union, some big changes in city leadership, and finally, we'll see how the council is trying to learn from all this to make things run a little smoother.
All right, first up, let's kick things off with a peek at what exactly landed on the council's plate in February. Okay, now for the part where things start to get, well, really interesting. Money. We're about to see how budgets, loans, and even a really well-intentioned gift ended up putting City Hall's procedures right under the microscope. So one of the big, ongoing projects they're tackling is salary reform. And get this, it's the first major overhaul in almost 20 years. I mean, that's a huge deal. It's not a simple fix, it's a whole process. An ordinance got passed back in December, and right now, the Finance Committee is looking at the next group of employees to include. This is a marathon, not a sprint, to modernize how the city pays its people. But it was during one of those Finance Committee meetings that this next little story popped up. And it's one of those classic cases, right? A simple transaction that ends up revealing some much bigger questions about how the city actually works. So what was it all about? A gift? We're talking over $10,000. The Department of Public Works sold some scrap metal, great idea, and donated all that cash to the Gardner Community Action Committee. A fantastic gesture for a great cause, but the process, that's what raised the red flag. And here's the crucial part. Gifts like this, totally legal, totally fine. But there are rules. You need the mayor's approval and you need the city council's approval before the money changes hands. And in this case, oops, those steps got skipped. So in the end, the council did approve the gift after the fact, but they made it crystal clear. From now on, let's follow the proper procedure. But that little gift situation wasn't the only thing the Finance Committee was digging into. Nope. They also turned their attention to another lingering question, this one involving a loan for the city's new salt shed. Okay, just look at how the story completely flipped. Back in December, the council hears the loan is almost paid off. Great. So in early February, they approve what they think is the final payment. Case closed, right? Wrong. By late February, the Finance Committee uncovers that, actually, there's still around $500,000 owed back to the city's own stabilization fund, which is basically its emergency savings account. I mean, that is a massive discrepancy, and it definitely impacts the city's overall financial picture. And you know how it goes when you start pulling on one thread, other stuff starts to unravel. While digging into that loan, they found something else. Nearly 20 grand that was supposed to be for building the salt shed had actually been used for truck repairs. So now the committee is investigating whether that was even legal. It just proves that when you ask one question, you often find a whole lot more. All this drama wasn't just about dollars and cents, though. There was also a pretty big, unexpected development on the personnel front. The council learned, kind of indirectly, that a new union was forming among city employees. And this really shows you just how big the communication gap was. The council has sort of pieced it together. They figured out a union is forming, partly because an employee they themselves elected seems to be involved. But here's the thing. They've gotten zero official notification. Nothing. They're totally in the dark about its official status, what the city's plan is, everything. That's why they finally appointed one of their own as a liaison, to bridge that gap and make sure they're kept in the loop. So, with all this uncertainty floating around, February was also about creating some stability. It was time for shoring up city leadership, filling a really critical vacant role, and confirming some key appointments. And this is a great example of the process working exactly like it should. After the city auditor resigned, a special committee ran a really thorough, months-long search. All that hard work paid off when Karen Butler was unanimously elected, filling a super important oversight position for the city. The council also handled some of its more routine but absolutely essential duties, confirming the mayor's appointments. This is how key city boards get staffed, and they gave the green light to 2 reappointments to the Conservation Commission and a brand new member for the Zoning Board of Appeals. So finally, after digging into all these external issues, the council also took some time to look inward. They started focusing on how they could fine-tune their own procedures to keep these kinds of problems from popping up in the first place. After some paperwork errors caused frustrating delays earlier in the year, the appointments committee took action. They didn't just let it slide. They adopted a whole new set of rules to streamline the process. It's a proactive step, It's all about learning from a mistake and making things better. So after a month of digging into finances, fixing procedures, and installing new leadership, you have to ask, what does all this change really mean? With a new auditor and a council that's clearly focused on accountability, is Gardner on the verge of a new era of transparency? Or are these recent discoveries maybe just the tip of the iceberg? That is what we'll all be watching.